Okay, picture this. What happens when you take literally the most notorious, chaotic figure in all of Russian history and somehow force him to use a modern gamer chat app? Today's explainer dives into a recently unearthed, totally bizarre digital simulation, Grigori Rasputin on Discord. I promise you, the actual chat log we're looking at today is going to completely break your brain. But first, I want you to just close your eyes for a second. Imagine the freezing, opulent palaces of St. Petersburg back in the early 20th century. Picture Rasputin wandering those halls, whispering into the ears of the Romanovs, literally altering the course of Russian history. Now grab that image, rip it entirely out of the history books, and drop it squarely into the neon-lit, notification-pinging, meme-obsessed world of the modern internet. Yeah. Our source material today asks a question that absolutely nobody was asking, but suddenly we all desperately need the answer to. We're going to analyze the exact chat history provided by our source to see what actually happens when early 20th century historical chaos collides head-on with a highly structured modern communication platform. Okay, let's dive into this. Alternate history is such a fascinating genre, right? We're always asking ourselves these massive questions like, what if the Roman Empire never fell? Or, what if the Industrial Revolution kicked off a century earlier? But this source takes a really unique, incredibly digital approach to that whole concept. It sets this massive, totally unexpected stage. It promises us a window into the psyche of a historical anomaly, but placed in an environment that's specifically designed for instant, unfiltered global communication. The ambition here is just staggering. We are being promised a look at the digital footprint of a guy who historically communicated through intense gazes, cryptic manipulation, and just overwhelming, unregulated charisma. So how on earth does that translate to a keyboard? How does a man like that act when he's just another anonymous username popping up in a chat channel? This setup really has us bracing for an absolute masterclass in psychological profiling through digital text. To truly appreciate what we're about to analyze, we kind of need to academically contrast the two massive concepts we're dealing with here. On one side, we have Rasputin. This was a man of extreme extremes. A Siberian peasant who became this highly controversial, incredibly manipulative figure deeply embedded in the absolute highest echelons of imperial power. He thrived on unchecked influence, deception, and real flesh-and-blood chaos. He is essentially the ultimate analog disruptor. Now, on the other side, we have Discord, a highly structured, meticulously coded platform originally built for gamers to organize raids and chat. It's an entire world built on server roles, moderation bots, strict permission hierarchies, and highly specific internet etiquette. The contrast here is just spectacular. You're taking a man who thrived purely on physical presence and sticking in behind a screen. You're taking a figure of total, unregulated influence and dropping him into a space governed by server admins, strict mute buttons, and terms of service. So naturally, the expectations for this alternate history scenario are sky high. We're fully expecting these sprawling text logs, or maybe seeing Rasputin manipulating server politics, bypassing bans, maybe even starting a cult in a locked voice channel.
And, the origin of our data really adds to this immense buildup. The source channel for this scenario is literally named Chat History. Now, if you know anything about digital forensics or data analysis, the phrase chat history carries a really specific, heavy implication. It implies a vast chronological repository of human interaction. Like when you request a chat history, you are expecting megabytes, maybe even gigabytes of text data. You're looking for timestamps, user IDs, deleted messages, and these long dramatic threads of server mutinies. You're expecting to track the evolving dynamics between users over days or weeks or even months. The channel name itself totally primes us for an exhaustive, incredibly detailed log of simulated online conversations. We're sitting down, analytical notebooks in hand, entirely ready to sift through this rich digital archive that maps the rise and fall of Rasputin's Discord empire. We are absolutely expecting a complex narrative woven out of hundreds, if not thousands, of individual data points.
So, we went into the archives of this source. We rigorously extracted the transcript. We ran the data processing just to count the exact number of words that make up the entirety of the surviving historical transcript from this insanely ambitious, reality-bending scenario. And before I show you the exact message he sent, because trust me, it is the absolute funniest, most unexpected thing you are going to see today, let me just tell you the word count. That number is 1. Just one single word. Out of all the infinite possibilities of what an infamous Russian mystic might type into the glowing digital void, out of all the potential server arguments, the dramatic exits, the late-night philosophical rants, the entire historical record provided by our source boils down to a word count of 1. All of that dramatic tension leading up to this document is completely inverted by the sheer brevity of the text. It's this monumental, academic buildup leading to literally the smallest possible dataset in existence.
And here it is. the complete, unaltered transcript of Grigori Rasputin's experience on Discord, exactly as provided by the source. Yeah, that's it. Just let that sink in for a second. It's the ultimate twist of expectation versus reality. You can almost picture it, right? You can hear the hum of the computer fan in this quiet candlelit room, the tentative clatter of a mechanical keyboard being touched for the very first time by this historical titan, and then a single syllable typed out and sent into the ether. In the source, it's actually spelled using the Arabic letters aleph, ya, and ha. It is the phonetic embodiment of absolute, unadulterated bewilderment. We were promised this profound window into a historical disruptor's digital soul, and instead, we got the textual equivalent of a blank, completely uncomprehending stare.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that we can't just dismiss this. We have to seriously, rigorously break down the linguistic ambiguity of this utterance. The source deliberately presents this single word in Arabic, This is actually a highly versatile term, and analyzing its potential meaning gives us literally the only clues we have to work with. Depending on the inflection, which tragically is completely lost in text when you don't use an emoji, it can mean a few vastly different things. It can signify profound existential confusion, basically translating to what or huh. It can be a genuine inquiry, like a polite request for you to repeat yourself, because what you just said simply did not compute on any level whatsoever. Or, hilariously in some contexts, it can just be a mindless, automatic affirmation, like a totally distracted yeah. Just imagine Rasputin, a man from the 1800s, logging into a modern Discord server, staring at an animated GIF of a dancing cat, reading a message from a user named XX_ShadowSniper_X, and his only possible linguistic recourse is an Arabic slang term for utter, paralyzing confusion. It crosses linguistic and temporal boundaries just to express how entirely out of his depth he truly is.
This brilliantly illustrates the true comedic genius of the source material. Look at the left side here. Notice the words in the title. What if Rasputin had Discord? 6 words, a robust, grammatically complete sentence that sets up an entire cinematic universe in your head. Now look on the right, the words in the actual transcript. 1. The disparity here is visually striking and mathematically absurd. From a purely analytical standpoint, the title is literally 6 times longer than the content it's describing. It is the ultimate anti-joke. It's an absolute masterclass in subverting expectations. In an era where we have these long-form video essays and just endless, bottomless streams of content, this source does the exact opposite. It builds this massive, intricate, highly detailed door, and when you finally unlock it and swing it open, there's just a solid brick wall with a tiny sticky note on it that simply says, The return on investment for the title is incredibly low in terms of literal word count, but phenomenally high in terms of just deadpan comedic impact.
Which brings us to our final takeaway, and a question I really want you to genuinely ponder. We laughed at the brevity, right? We analyzed the linguistics, but let's look at the harsh reality of this scenario. Is this single confused utterance actually the most realistic possible reaction? Think about it. If you took a man from the year 1916, a man whose entire worldview was shaped by horse-drawn carriages and imperial courts, and suddenly dropped him in front of a glowing 4K monitor displaying a crowded Discord server with rolling text, flashing moderator badges, and voice channels full of people just screaming over a video game, what else is there to realistically say? A grand philosophical speech wouldn't make sense. A manipulative political manifesto just wouldn't fit. The only true, authentic, historically accurate reaction to the sheer sensory overload of the modern internet for an individual from that era is exactly what our source provided. Sometimes the shortest transcript is actually the most truthful. But hey, I want to hear from you. If you could drop any historical figure into a modern Discord server, who would it be? And what is the one single word they would type? Let me know down in the comments. Thank you for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning, keep analyzing, and I'll catch you next time.